Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Friday, October the 17th. Welcome to Let's Talk Tropics. Quiet out there right now, but it looks like we're going to see some action perhaps in the Caribbean coming up next week. It is still hurricane season through November the 30th, and so far the Gulf has only had one named storm in there, Barry, way back in the early part of the season. The Caribbean so far has had no named storms develop or track through the Caribbean. The earlier versions of Imelda as a tropical wave kind of moved over the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Puerto Rico, eventually into the Bahamas, but did not become a named storm until it got in the Bahamas. So far, the Caribbean has been extremely quiet, but we've had some pretty big hurricanes during the month of October down here in the Caribbean. So keep that in mind. It looks like next week we'll probably see some action out there, but at this point in time, it doesn't look like the Gulf waters are going to have to deal with any of this. But looking outside, a little on the hazy side, it's a little bit more humid across the region today. Temperatures are going to be on the warm side and also a little bit more on the muggy side. Clear skies out there over toward Orange Beach and down toward Dauphin Island, Alabama. And then we see a little bit more cloud cover over Cocodrie and then back over toward Texas as more of an upper wave has kind of moved over the area. It started out down here over deep South Texas and has kind of wound its way up this way over the last 24 hours. That's ahead of our front that's going to be coming in later on this weekend. Offshore waters, not too bad. Winds are going to be running southeast 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Our friends out in the farther offshore waters probably dealing with a little rougher seas and also some gustier winds out there. And you can see where that upper trough or that upper little short wave is kind of coming around. So it's bringing a little bit of moisture in the upper levels up and around, and it's in the form of cloud cover. Any precip that's showing up here on the radar for the most part is not hitting the ground. It is evaporating. It's an upper level system, and the lower parts of the atmosphere are still relatively dry. So that's why we're getting some radar echoes, but not a whole lot of rain actually reaching the ground. And you can see it a little bit better here on the satellite imagery, low pressure kind of pushing off in the upper levels. And that eventually is going to be swept away by this deeper trough that's a little bit farther out toward the west. And that trough is going to continue to advance in our direction and could bring us a better chance for some showers and thunderstorms as we head into the mid part of the weekend, particularly Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and early Sunday morning. Gulf waters pretty quiet for the most part as far as any tropical weather is concerned. Got a little bit of a thunderstorm activity at the tail end of a front that's down over the Yucatan and over parts of Central America. This area here on the Pacific side has got a pretty good chance for some development going over the next couple of days as it drifts off toward the west. And then the tail end of that frontal boundary, you see it right there moving across the Caribbean right now. It is going to start to lift back toward the north, and the tropical waves, that's tropical wave number 1, and then we've got tropical wave number 2 that's a little bit farther out. But you can see as low pressure that's way out here, this is also something that's going to be watched by the National Hurricane Center over the next couple of days for some development, but pretty low on the development. But wave 1 is here, wave 2 is here, and they're pretty far to the south, all thanks to a ridge of high pressure that's kind of dumped its way southward off the African coast. So rather than those waves kind of moving toward the northern part of the Leeward Islands, this one's coming in a little bit farther toward the south. And it's really the second wave that we're watching a little bit more for some tropical development. The first wave might go ahead and roll inland there on the coast of South America, but the second wave is expected to pass its way through the mid part of the tropical islands and could potentially become a tropical system here over the next couple of days. I don't think we have anything to worry about over the weekend. But our friends that are down in the Leeward and Windward Islands, and particularly the Virgin Islands over toward Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Haiti, do need to be on the lookout for this. Part of the reason is this is kind of a vigorous tropical wave. Second reason is wind shear is fairly low over the Caribbean, and then those water temperatures are extremely warm. So really all of the ingredients are there for the possibility of something to develop or maybe even strengthen a little bit over the next week or so there in the Caribbean. Part of the reason I've been a little more concerned, and you've probably heard me say this over and over and over again, is the temperatures of the waters are extremely warm there across the Gulf and much of the western part of the Caribbean, and then the heat content is pretty deep there too. So the tropical system with low wind shear and those warm waters, that high heat potential could whip into something pretty quickly, from a tropical wave to maybe a tropical storm or a hurricane in a very short period of time. And that's kind of what we worry about there in parts of the Caribbean. So again, the Caribbean at this point, you can see there's virtually no wind shear out there right now. Everything's up here along the northern Gulf Coast, and you got that trough that's digging across the Atlantic. You got a lot of wind shear there. So at this point in time, any waves that are coming out from the Atlantic and into this particular area would actually have some decent atmospheric conditions for development. And on top of that, with the warm waters below, there's a potential that tropical weather could be forming there over parts of the Caribbean next week. So let's go ahead and follow the models. This is going to be kind of a shorter version since there's not a lot out there right now and everything's kind of up in the air in the forecast, but as we progress our way through the weekend, you see that we really don't have any tropical development. We just got that moisture starting to slide into portions of the eastern part of the Caribbean. And then as we go into next week, you see that moisture kind of concentrating maybe a little bit more here over the eastern part of the Caribbean. But even by Tuesday, we're not seeing low pressure developing. It's not until about the latter part of the week that you start to see low pressure developing here over the central part of the Caribbean. This would be a little under a week from today, next Thursday. And then notice how it deepens a little bit more as it just kind of holds there in the middle part. And then a trough starts to tug it northward across western Cuba, Jamaica, or possibly there over the western part of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. This is for Wednesday, the 29th of October. So we're actually out beyond that 10-day forecast that I like to hold together. But that's the Euro solution going out a little bit farther. So let's check out the GFS. And the GFS was also calling for tropical weather to move into the Caribbean yesterday. And here you can see that by the time we reach Wednesday of next week, we start to see that low pressure area forming, and there's a good amount of moisture around it. But the GFS doesn't drift it very far toward the west. The trough just kind of picks it up and pulls it more northeastward. Again, that would be more of a threat for the Virgin Islands as well as Puerto Rico. And this is a week from Sunday, so we're not quite out to that 10-day period. But remember, the Euro model still had some development, or at least a low pressure area in this area at day 10, and the GFS has it making it into the Caribbean and then curving its way back toward the northeast by day 10. So there is consistency that both of them are calling for a developing system in the Caribbean, but the inconsistency is which direction it's going to go. And a lot of that probably is going to have to deal with how quickly it strengthens. With the GFS, if we go back here several hours, you see that things get a little bit stronger there as we get into about a week from Saturday. And remember, a stronger tropical system is going to be affected by more of these upper level conditions here than what a weaker system would be. And the Euro model was considerably weaker with that low as it moved farther toward the west. So that might be the differences between the GFS and the Euro, as they're showing a little difference in the intensity. And the stronger a system would be, the more it's going to be able to be influenced by some of these other upper level patterns. But something that's really weak is just going to kind of meander its way on its own. So back over to the Canadian model, and as we move it in, you see that the Canadian, which kind of like yesterday, has something developing even earlier than the other two global models, possibly pushing that into the Caribbean and then strengthening again. And you see it gets pretty strong there, but then once it gets south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, it starts to make more of that northerly turn and then kind of meander. It looks like it weakens, so it possibly be affected by this trough, and also quite a bit of wind shear that would be coming in from the southwest at that point in time. So at this point, it looks like the Canadian is also forecasting a tropical system, but the track is really off compared to the other two models. So we just don't have a lot of consistency there. The only consistency we have is that most of the models are calling for a tropical system to develop out in the Caribbean Sea. And as we roll with the icon here, again, this only goes out 7 days. You don't see really much. Maybe a bit of a low trying to get going right there, but it's kind of hard to tell. And the icon has really not been very excited about this tropical wave moving across the Atlantic. We'll have to wait and see if it kind of pulls up with the rest of the computer models farther down the road. Quick look at the Google AI and some of the other models that we have through here. I'll just put it in motion, and you see it is picking up on low pressure to move out of the Atlantic, and by the time we finish off the weekend, that low should make its way into the Caribbean. Now, the blue dots are the AI. The other dots are models that we already have, but you see there's pretty good cluster there over the central part of the Caribbean Sea going into about Wednesday and Thursday of next week, and then you see kind of that stall. Now, some of these dots are going to drop off because these models don't go out as far as the Google AI does, but you see the blue dots start to make that turn toward the northeast and back out into the Atlantic waters. But the good news is we're really not seeing anything coming into the southeastern part of the Gulf waters. Now, the Euro, again, calling for more of a track with the tropical wave moving into the Caribbean with a weak low pressure area. While the GFS doesn't have a lot of development out here, it keeps more of the development here over parts of the Caribbean Sea. And then, as you can see, most of them do turn off toward the northeast, keeping things away from the Gulf Coast. That does fit in line with the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook that was issued on Tuesday of this week, keeping things pretty active over parts of the Caribbean. But then the following week, going into the first few days of November, showing no tropical cyclone activity expected. So that is good news, and that is usually the trend that we start to see as we head toward the month of November. We're getting our way, but at least halfway, 3/4 of the way through October. But by the time we start to reach November, the amount of activity really starts to drop off. So nothing really to worry about this weekend on development, but I think the Caribbean is going to be dealing with a tropical system, if not a hurricane, before the week ends next week. And then after that, we're hoping things are going to slow down. And at that point in time, once we get into November, really the northern Gulf Coast here doesn't have to worry a whole lot about tropical systems as things really start to relax as we get into November. Well, again, I know this is a shorter version of Let's Talk Tropics, but please like it, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. And remember, you can hear my forecast every day on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And this weekend, I will be over at WBRZ Channel 2. We've got a big LSU show that starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is kind of cool because the show ends at 11, and that's when the LSU game starts. They are on the road, but it's still going to be a big LSU newscast that we'll have. So if you're a Tigers fan, please join us. And if you don't catch us on TV, you can find the link below in the descriptions. I'll also be there on Sunday at 9 and Monday for tune-in from 5 to 9. And of course, thanks to everyone who are following my social media pages, both on Facebook and X, and those of you who have subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Have yourself a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.